Our last talk is about social media. So I assume most of us are familiar with the topic. There's a heated debate often whether to use it or not to use it and what data science and machine learning can achieve there. Today we will see a presentation not on personal profiles but on company profiles. So it can be very interesting since many of you are representing companies as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce Simone and Guang, and look forward to your presentation. Thank you very much. Warm welcome.
Well, hello and good afternoon, and welcome to this talk. Thank you, Klaus, for the brilliant introduction. So, without further ado, what are owner-based brand personality? Let me explain with these two examples. What's the difference between the two logos? Yeah, one is red, one is black and blue. You might know the red one, Red Republic, yeah, they're fairly big, they're very successful, they've got 200 employees. The other one is a small company from the canton of Aargau, Merki Marketing. The key difference is Stefan and Cornelia Merki. They founded Merki Marketing. So the owner is the figurehead of the brand name of the brand. They are a micro company. Micro companies have up to 10 employees. 1 in 4 companies in Switzerland is a micro company. So it's quite a big market here, actually. And as I've mentioned before, the owner's face is the figurehead. Why are brand personalities important? Because they provide a symbolic meaning to the brand and a benefit that goes beyond functional product benefit. I mean, there's so many companies offering social media services. Why would you pick one or the other? Because of the brand and how you perceive it. And also it fosters consumer engagement and involvement, which is what you want, really. You want the people to interact with you, with your company, with your brand. So with that, we are at this construct called owner-based brand personality. In this research, this is an applied research project together with Merki Marketing. So we are at the moment, we've built a proof of concept. So we're sort of like ready to go one step forward. We're also interested in your ideas and potential collaborations. So hopefully I've got time for that afterwards. So we used in this preliminary study Bechet's typology of personality. So some of you might recognize this framework. He says that there is a red, a green, and a blue personality type. So it's one of the many color-based frameworks that you'd find in management. So he developed that typology for sales, for consultancy, and for management. I'll give you a moment to have a look at these different personality type characteristics of the red, the green, and the blue personality type. As you can see, there's quite a lot of characteristics on there. There is also mixed personality types. We're not looking at those. That would have just been beyond the scope of this very small research project. Instead, we're just looking at the red, the green, and the blue personality characteristics and how they applied to language. So how can we find these brand personality types in language? There are 4 aspects. The first one is semantics, which is very obvious, right? It's lexical-based. How can we say that? Sort of like, what is the justification to find semantics in language? The lexical hypothesis says we can find differences in personality and brand personality in single words. So single words differentiate one personality type from another. Also, seminal human personality research dating back a century says, yes, we can use language to differentiate from one brand personality from another, or one personality type from another. So that is sort of like keyword-based. Slightly more sort of like new and interesting, perhaps for you, is activity level. Well, language can be more or less active. It can be very descriptive. So we have a low activity level, or it can be very active. We have a high activity level. If you think about a red brand personality, who or that is very dynamic and active, probably that brand personality type or a person sort of like embodying that brand personality would use more active language, more verbs. Whereas a blue brand personality type, who is a very matter-of-fact, sort of sober, analytical person, would use more descriptive language because he or she wants to be very precise and to the point. The third aspect, how language can explain or can be used to differentiate between different brand personality types, is temporal context. The green brand personality type is sort of like more past-oriented, but nostalgic. So past tense would be more in line with that brand personality type. Versus a red brand personality type, who is more future-oriented, or use more future tense. Lastly, the fourth aspect that explains or differentiates different personality types are psycholinguistic word properties. Sentiment, I'm not going to explain, because you already know. Emotional intensity is how intensely you experience the positive or negative sentiment. So again, going back to Bechet's typology, a green brand personality type would probably use less emotional intense words and slightly more positive words because green brand personality types, they are team players. They want a collegial, harmonic sort of like environment. So nice words make a nice environment. Versus a red brand personality type, they sort of like, they want to do things, they're competitive, they're dynamic, they're slightly pushy. So for them, they probably would use more emotionally intense words to draw people in. Sort of these preliminary thoughts. We're just exploring here, right? Imaginability is an interesting concept. It refers to the extent to which the object that a word describes can be accessed with your sensory systems. Let me give you an example. Chair. The word chair describes the thing that you sit on. You can experience the thing that you sit on directly, haptically, right? Okay. Concreteness is similar, but it's about cognitive accessibility. So the extent to which it is easy for you to picture something. Again, an example. The word concept. How easy is it for you to picture something in your inner eye, in your mind? What does concept mean? It's kind of vague. It's not very concrete. Versus table, you immediately, cognitively, it's very easy to access. It's very concrete. You know immediately what it is. So for concreteness, there are different sort of like predictions or how it could go. You could say, well, for a blue brand personality type, they're very specific, analytical, they're very precise. They would want to communicate in a very specific, concrete way. But a blue brand personality type also wants to distance themselves. They're reserved, right? So maybe they also use less concrete words because they want to be more vague. So just different sort of like predictions. But they definitely tie in with Bechet's framework. Last but not least, we've got language dominance, which refers to the extent to which words are patronizing. If you think about a red brand personality type, the ones that are pushy, competitive, and they want to sort of persuade people, they would use more dominant words to persuade others to be part of their idea. Versus a green brand personality type, they would not use very dominant words because they want to have a nice atmosphere. They don't want to be dominant and persuading people. They just want to be happy with everybody else. I'm being very simplistic here for the sake of sort of like, communicating and transporting the idea. So the question now is, okay, we've got these four aspects, how we can measure or how we can differentiate between different brand personalities with language. How do we put it into practice? How we actually do it? What is the operationalization? So semantics is measured with a brand personality corpus, which was part of this research project. There is existing work in English, so you'll find all the references in the paper, but not in German, nothing. Word types is POS tagging, so there are resources in English as well as in German. Tense, resources available in English, but not so much in German, or the resources that are found in German just say it's very complicated and time-consuming. So again, we had to say it's out of scope. For the psycholinguistic word properties, there are two really nice corporas which are brilliant to use. So I'm using those. The sample is 3 micro companies. One is Merki Marketing, so Stefan Merki provided me his data, he downloaded them and sent them to me, as well as 2 of his clients. So we've had 1,208 posts, out of which are 387 from Facebook and 821 from LinkedIn. So yes, the sample's not balanced, but we all know if you're working with secondary data, you never have ideal experimental conditions. Yes, thank you for nodding. Right. Okay.
You press quite hard. Oh.
No.
There's a second one somewhere.
If I could have that one. So the second slide, in the meantime, I'm just going to make use of the time, is the data cleaning steps. Should I do it again? Thank you. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but it was a bit of fun and a steep learning curve working with German data rather than English. Here you've got a snippet of the data showing how rich it is. We've got the pictures, we've got the emoticons, we've got a lot of it. We only use the language data. So what are the results? I'm only presenting here a snippet of it for the sake of time, and also in the paper there's only so much of it. Looking first at the keyword count, i.e. the semantic aspect, immediately you're probably seeing the zeros, meaning that some posts on Facebook and LinkedIn had 0 keywords for the red, the green, and the blue brand personality type. So in that sense, the communication does not tie in or does not reflect very well the different brand personality types from BitChart. Some of them use quite a lot of keywords. There's also a difference between platforms, Facebook and LinkedIn. So the communication on Facebook always has more keywords than the one on LinkedIn. Going on to the psycholinguistic word properties, sentiment. Here the scale ranges from 0, not happy, very calm, low imaginability, low concreteness, low dominance, to 10, very happy, intense, imaginable, concrete, and dominant. So just for you to sort of like have a way to assess the numbers yourself. So you can see the sentiment really is kind of like mildly positive, what you would kind of expect in marketing communication. There is no difference really between platforms, and if there is, just a marginal one. Emotional intensity is a much lower, which in a way makes sense again, particularly if we're thinking about Swiss micro SMEs. Right, in Switzerland we are nice and polite, but not too emotional about things. Yeah, we're rather sober. So that kind of reflects that as well. You can see a mild difference between LinkedIn and Facebook, but not that much. Imaginability and concreteness, you've got kind of like a lowish imaginability and concreteness, because mind you, it starts at 0. And dominance, you can see that the numbers are the same. The reason is that the dominant corpus, with the one that I worked with in German, did not compute dominance rating for all the posts. So I've had over 10% missing values. So for that reason, I could not further include dominance in the language model, despite we really had wanted to do so. Also, another thing that the correlation plot shows, which you can see in the paper, there is a too strong correlation between imaginability and concreteness. So I was going to run an exploratory factor analysis, and it says that there should be no moderate or strong correlations between the variables. So I've had to exclude imaginability in the model. So this is the model. It does not look the way I had hoped, to be honest with you, but then that's research, isn't it? What it does show that psycholinguistic word properties such as emotional intensity, concreteness and sentiment strongly explain differences between brand personality. They're very strong predictors. What I had hoped, activity level, does not really pan out the way I had hoped. Because personal pronouns and possessive pronouns, I would have thought would be a strong explanatory variable for the green brand personality type, but here it just does not show anything at all. Same with adjectives. I thought they would explain the blue brand personality type. It doesn't show up as any sort of like noteworthy explanatory power. Only verbs explain differences between brand personalities. So, yeah. And most strikingly, probably, the key KWI stands for keyword index. Because of the unbalanced and sort of like messy data, I've had to do quite a bit of data and statistical wrangling. You can all read it in the paper, how I computed this keyword index, but it does not sort of like show any explanatory power. What is good, though, is that because I've had a decent amount of data, I could split the sample in half. So I had the split half reliability of this whole model. And this model shows the same sort of like model goodness of fit matrix for both the test and the validation data. So the CFI above like 0.9 is very good, right? And that holds true for both the test and the validation data. The Tucker-Lewis index above 8.5 is good. So for the test data, it's all right, and for the validation data, it's very good. You could argue that for the root mean square residual and the RMSEA, they're okay. The threshold is 0.05, so for the RMSCR, it's below, and here it's just there. So the model has a good fit. It doesn't say what I had hoped it would say, but then that's research, but it's valid, and that's what's important to me. So what do we sort of like conclude from that? Where do we stand with the research? Sentiment, emotional intensity, and concreteness, they're very strong explanatory variables, meaning that if you're looking at different brand personalities, not just do a keyword analysis, use psycholinguistic word properties because they need to be included. Negative factor loading of concreteness might seem counterintuitive, but sort of like less concrete and more abstract words have a positive impact of brand personality, because whatever is more abstract is psychologically more distant, and that is more desirable. And we need brands to be desirable. A non-desirable brand has no reason to exist. Simple. With regards to sort of like the word type, I thought about trying out as a next step different POS taggers, and also sort of like find alternative explanations as to why it's not significant. With the keyword index, that has literally no explanation power. Try other compilation methods. My co-author, Guang Lu, is also here. He's got another sort of like way of computing a dictionary. He's done that, and he's presented this work previously here. So that might be something that we're looking at, as well as another theoretical underpinning. So these are sort of like where we are. Any questions, ideas, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Simona. Thank you also, Guang. Questions from the audience? Yeah, there's somebody.
Hello. Kind of interesting talk. Question in terms of the sample data you had. You said you had 3 companies, right? Mm-hmm. You've got 3 personality types, but presumably the brands themselves are somewhat consistent in their own messaging, right? So how did you in the real world kind of tackle that problem if you've got a sample of 3, but you're trying to build a model that can predict multiple different personality types? Right.
So thanks for the question. So yes, the 3 micro companies represented a blue, a green, and a red brand personality type. Unfortunately, the sample was so unbalanced that statistically I wouldn't put it in a model. So looking at just the data in a visual, exploratory way, we actually found, and that was of value to the company, that he wanted to communicate exactly the way you said, sort of like, the green is more collegial, more amicable, so on and so forth, but in fact he didn't. So his messaging is not in line with the way he positions the brand. And also for himself, and I had a really good discussion with Stefan Merki about this. So he says, well, I'm a blue type. But he communicated in a sort of like very positive, emotionally, slightly intense way. And then he said, well, actually, I might want to compensate for sort of like, I'm a blue, matter-of-fact type of person. So because I want to approach other people as well, not just my own kind, I might communicate in a different way. So that raises an other set of sort of like in industry, how do you want to work with this? Where do you want to go with this?
I assume that also then raises the obvious question, could you build a model to basically read, input some text, and you want it to be perceived in a particular way, so generate new text in a different style to reach a different audience, right? Presumably that's where you're going.
Yes, in the very, very, very long way. Yeah, that would be the Rolls Royce. Yes, but I can see some sort of like potholes going there. I think we both know probably the ones we're talking about. Yeah, at the moment, which is lack of data. So in another research project, I'm trying to computationally access LinkedIn. It's hard. It's very hard. So that's just one thing that we're struggling with. Another one, so it's really data availability. But yeah, sort of like text summarization and generation, that's something that sort of like Wang is also a very good person to talk to. Yeah.
More questions?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Okay. Oh, time out. Yeah, thank you, Simone. Here's a small token of appreciation.
Thank you. Bye.
For Wang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Merci.
Thank you very much. So.
Thank you.